Great. Okay. So I want to tell you first a little bit about the Illinois Environmental Council, and League of Women Voters Chicago is a member of our coalition, which is really fantastic. This is our 50th anniversary. I got to update this with our 50th anniversary slides. But we were formed in 1975 by other environmental groups. And so back in 1975, groups like the Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, all of those organizations got together and said that we need a consistent voice in Springfield, and they formed IEC. Today, we have over 150 different organizations that we represent in Illinois, that we advance equitable policies that create healthy environments across Illinois. And we do have a C3 and C4. So our C3 focuses on collaboration, communication, and education, and our C4 focuses on collaboration, building power, and advocacy. So a little bit about us and what we do, and I'll skip to here. We end up putting our work into 6 different issue areas: sustainable agriculture, conservation, clean energy, equitable transportation, clean water, and zero waste. And we look at coalition building, legislator education, policy advocacy to get our work done. So I want to talk a little bit. We're in Springfield, right? I live in Chicago, but we're in Springfield a lot right now for the legislative deadlines, and just wanted to share this, which is when the important 2025 deadlines are coming up. If you haven't worked with the state legislature before and you need more information about working with the state legislature, we have an entire 2-hour series that's on our YouTube channel, which is IL Enviro. And we have civics for advocates, civics for environmentalists that anybody can learn about and take part in. And so definitely recommend that to learn how the legislature works. It's a weird one. Sometimes it's a little surreal. So these are some of the deadlines that are coming up. We've already gone by the bill introduction deadlines. You can't introduce any new bills at this point, but you could put shell bills in. We just went through the governor's budget and State of the State address last week. And well, I guess that was 2 weeks ago. Oh my gosh, it's March. But we're coming up upon in just a couple of weeks the bill committee deadline. And this is an important first deadline to see if bills are going to remain alive or if we can't move them forward. And so yeah, just a little bit more. And then third reading deadline, April 11th, and then a bill committee deadline in the other chamber, May 9th, May 23rd, and we have to get it all done by May 31st. The first piece I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk about our 3 bills related to the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. I'm going to talk about zero waste and wetlands. But like I said, I'm happy to talk about any of these. So you can see Illinois, we're really eager to address carbon emissions in Illinois. And I know, like right now, it's so pessimistic at the federal level, and I really need to make a slide about this. But we're watching the rollback of the first big climate change piece of legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act. We're watching all of these things just get rolled back at the federal level. But one of my favorite pieces to quote is this University of Maryland study that says that non-federal actors, so that means state and private sector, can reduce carbon emissions by 40 to 65% by 2035, all on their own. So if Illinois and the other states that are dedicated to 100% clean energy, which there are a lot of them at this point, keep going and the private sector keeps in the direction that it's been going, we are going to see emissions reduction. So let's not give up hope here, and we do matter in what we do in Illinois. So this is a little slide here. One item with electric power is that electric power used to be the biggest generator of carbon dioxide, and now it is transportation. So that's a little of our focus for this year. But we've got the commercial sector, residential buildings, industrial, and transportation. We want to address all of these, not just electric power like we've done. And Illinois is a large emitter of carbon dioxide, so we need to make a difference. One of the items that we've done to address this has been the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. You may have heard of CEJA. This is a bill that puts us on a path towards 100% renewable energy by 2050, including 40% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. We haven't quite met the goals, but we're on our way and we're vastly increasing renewable energy in Illinois. It also closes coal plants and natural gas, committing Illinois to be carbon free by 2045 and transitioning away from most fossil fuels starting in 2030. So just a little bit about CEJA. And CEJA had a number of components, a number of ways to address the problem. There's a huge focus on equity and making sure that those who have been impacted by carbon emissions can be part of the clean energy economy. So there's economic justice, inclusive financing, all just transition for fossil fuel communities. We're also looking very heavily at planning, which is going to be a focus this year, and electric transportation. So a little bit about CEJA, it's working. It's not meeting quite its goals in every place, but that's okay. We're moving in the right direction and it's going really well. So what's next? We have three bills that and I should say we are a member of the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, a founding member, and we're on the steering committee and do a ton of work with the Clean Jobs Coalition to make sure that it can run. And so there's three bills, although actually it's more like 9 bills. But there's three pieces that we're headed towards this year to address emissions in different sectors. The first is the Clean and Reliable Grid Act, aimed at the deployment of renewable energy as quickly as possible, some tweaks to CEJA. There's the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act and the Clean and Healthy Buildings Act. Of course, transportation is about transportation, healthy buildings is about the building sector. Here are all the numbers, and I'll make sure that Claudia has these slides, and I'm happy to have them shared. We got a lot of bills this year. So power sector, there are big bills, and then there are some smaller bills that relate to municipal utilities and cooperatives that we hope get included. And then the building sector, we do have, much like Cabo was done at the city level, we have a Clean and Healthy Buildings Act related to planning on methane gas. But we're not going to move that one forward this year. It's a big year for other things. So we're looking at things like sharing building data or creating thermal energy networks, which are whole block or multifamily use of geothermal. And then State Navigator, which brings together the pieces of electrification into one hub that can be accessed. And then the transportation sector, there's the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act, the Transportation Choices Act, which is about how we spend our transportation dollars to reduce carbon emissions, and then the Metropolitan Mobility Authority Act to look at how we restructure and make more efficient our transit system so that we can meet the transit fiscal cliff that's coming. But I'm going to talk about all of these a little more. I just talked about what each of those did, so I'm going to skip it. But I think the way to talk about the Clean and Reliable Grid Act, which has been our focus, maybe you've seen some action alerts. There's just a press conference and a front page article this past week. But Illinois has a plan for renewable energy through CEJA. We know what we're going to do. We know what we want to do. Unfortunately, there's a regional transmission organization. We're part of two, both PJM and MISO. PJM is where we're at in Chicago, and MISO is sort of the rest of the state. And so with that in mind, PJM and MISO don't have a plan for renewable energy. And in fact, they just made a decision to make methane gas jump over renewable energy in the queue. And so, we need to make our plan a little more our plan go in a way that moves these transmission operators forward as well. So there's a piece about getting transmission lines on the grid to make sure renewable energy is transported where it needs to go. Interconnection is incredibly important. These interconnection lines to PJM and MISO have been incredibly slow. And then updating transmission infrastructure as well. So this is all about accelerating renewable energy deployment. So we want to maximize our clean energy procurements. Battery storage is a really big deal now as we start to increase how much renewable energy is on the grid. We're going to need battery storage to make sure that we have a consistent source of power. And so we are supporting battery storage, but not as much as the industry is. We want to make sure that it gets on the ground in a way that can be efficiently used. And another piece, capacity is an issue. Capacity is how much renewable, how much energy is available and whether it's available when it's needed. And the best way to address capacity is to reduce the amount of energy that's needed. One thing that we have been fighting for all time has been energy efficiency, and ComEd has some great programs. If you are a ComEd customer and you haven't yet, they have, for example, a home energy audit program that they will come out and or they'll do a Zoom appointment with you. They will look at LEDs and other things that you need replaced in your home and give it to you for free. They have some programs to replace your thermostat for really cheap. They have subsidies on items when you go to the hardware store. You can get items that are for energy efficiency at a lower cost. We'll have that here. You may have seen it here. They don't have that in the Ameren customer territory because they don't need to meet the same energy efficiency goals. So we want to make sure that Ameren has to meet those goals, and we want to increase what ComEd has to do. So we're working very heavily on energy efficiency as part of this. And then these are some solutions to build more renewable energy projects. We want to make sure we're building more, we're building larger ones, and that we're streamlining grid interconnection. And then we want to support renewable development at the local level and make sure the state legislation on local siting moves forward. So these were some of the things that I've talked about. Also, municipal utilities are really important. There's about 42-ish communities that are municipal utilities in Illinois, as well as rural electric cooperatives. They get their own energy, and unfortunately, maybe 15 years ago, they got together and bought one of the largest coal plants, the 7th largest carbon emitter in all of the United States, in far southern Illinois, to meet their energy needs. And it's been a boondoggle and a really big deal. And so we want to make sure that the utilities have to do renewable energy. So great, let's go. So that's just take in mind with this one. I know it's a lot of maybe more complicated pieces, but it's about how our renewable energy plan connects to the regional transmission operators in a way that makes renewable energy deployment happen more quickly. So that's a little bit about this Surge Act. And then Clean and Healthy Buildings Act, this is about building electrification. So when we are using methane gas, which I have been checking myself, but methane gas instead of natural gas, because we say natural gas, people think it's like a good thing because it's natural, but it's methane gas. Often are saying dangerous methane gas. There's a lot that's being learned about it as being a very powerful climate change gas. And also, it can be something that is dangerous for people who are, it can be dangerous in terms of use inside homes. Like there's more and more data about particulate matter and other things that are burning from the natural gas from stoves that are in your home. It's things that I've learned about recently and definitely changed my habits. And so, definitely recommend, that you think about that as well and think about electrification. And so, there's different ways fuel emissions are used in buildings through methane gas that includes space heating, water heating, and cooking. And so, that use of gas is not good for the environment. And so we want to make sure that we're reducing it and getting off of it. And it also, folks are finding that, especially now as gas prices are kind of all over the place, we can enjoy savings over the lifetime of the switch. So it's something that also can save homeowners money and protect low-income ratepayers. So we want to look at clean buildings. So this includes deploying energy efficiency and electrification. So right now, the Illinois Commerce Commission is doing these future of gas proceedings to look at how methane gas will be used by the state in the future. And it's definitely a discussion. I think that this has been one where trades labor would like to continue to build natural gas pipelines at the rate that they've always done, even though they also support building new electrification infrastructure. for homes because labor gets hired in these places too. So it has been a really contentious fight if you've seen at the city of Chicago level. Um, but we want to establish clean heat standards. We want to have natural gas energy efficiency, which there have not been effective natural gas energy efficiencies programs previously. The natural gas energy efficiency piece is in the Clean and Reliable Grid Act, but it's also in the Clean and Healthy Buildings Act. We do hope that we can also move forward natural gas efficiency this year. And then the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act. We're thinking about carbon emissions coming from a smokestack like this, but the biggest source of carbon emissions in Illinois right now is our transportation sector. We've done a lot of work to get rid of emissions in our electric sector, and it's going down all the time. But in the transportation sector, the share is increasing, and it's not just carbon emissions, it's also air pollution. You think every day a diesel truck is on the road, it gets dirtier. And so this is something that is hurting communities, is causing air pollution. And then, we're also thinking about ways that it's not safe to participate in those active transit modes that can be healthy for us, that can keep our community strong. So, thinking about sidewalks, walking, biking, access for people with disabilities, those are all challenges that we see, and high crash rates due to unsafe roadways. If you look the amount of pedestrian deaths from cars has been just increasing so much. And part of that is definitely infrastructure. Part of that is our distracted driving. And so part of that is our much, much larger cars. And so, if folks, you know, if we want to make our streets and transit and roadways safer. But one of the big things that is a challenge right now is that transit has a huge funding deficit coming up through the ARPA fundings and through what's happened with COVID and ridership. We have at least a $700 million gap. We probably need more like $1.5 billion. And if that $700 million funding gap isn't closed, we're going to see service reductions of up to 40%, which are going to be huge increases in terms of the uh, cars on the road. So it's going to be something that impacts everybody negatively if we can't fix this issue. So, these effects are inequitable in the city. Thinking about air quality, it's often in those south and west side areas where there are low income people, Black and brown people, and just huge issues with transportation. So we have three bills that are part of the Clean and Equitable Transportation Act. One is the Transportation Choices Act. And so this moves transportation spending to be look at becoming 100% carbon free by 2050 and aligns our spending. So Minnesota and Colorado have done important things here. And for example, in Minnesota, if you add a vehicle mile traveled by widening a highway, you must make an equal investment in transit or active transportation in order to reduce carbon emissions from the transportation sector. And so we want to look at our overall spending and how we align it with reducing carbon emissions instead of continuing to increase lane widening. There have been some proposals to do that recently that just adding another lane is only a temporary fix. It just becomes congested right back. So how do you do other things to make sure that you are getting people into reliable public transit or active transportation? There's also a piece of reforming the different agencies because there are CTA, PACE, RTA, Metra, and they're not working together. They are doing procurement separately. There's several different procurements for electric buses, for example, right now. And if they buy systems that are incompatible, it'll continue to lead to the incompatible system. There's places where the bus is not scheduled to come when the train arrives, even though it's supposed to go to the train stop. So nobody's working together, and we want to ensure that that's happening and it's done efficiently. And then the Zero Emissions Transportation Act is about increasing our availability and reliability of electric vehicles. So I want to talk about some additional legislation and stuff I'm really excited about, and I know Claudia is excited about, and I'll try to give the best updates that I can here. Um, but I'm feeling extremely hopeful about this being our year of plastics. So this polystyrene foam foodware ban we have been working on, I think for 4 years now. And there's a year we got it out of House committee. There's the year we got out of the House. But it's died in the Senate, and we've had to do a lot of negotiation with different stakeholders on it. And so it's not quite what we wanted in terms of the date, but we really listened to stakeholders. And this bill is about polystyrene foam foodware that is used for food to be served in restaurants, retailers, even in our homes and schools. This polystyrene foam foodware, even though it's a very tiny percentage of overall waste, this foodware is a huge percentage of litter. We all know and I'm saying polystyrene foam foodware because styrofoam is a brand name, but styrofoam is one of the types of polystyrene foam foodware. Um, it breaks down into little pieces. It ends up in our beaches, in our lake, in our sewer system. It never decomposes. It'll be around for all time. And it also is extremely toxic from the creation with styrene that is a carcinogen to its usage. You're not supposed to put foam foodware in the microwave, and people are doing it all the time. And then the so-called recycling of polystyrene foam foodware is not real. They're putting a very hazardous chemical in touch with the styrene to make more hazardous chemicals, um, etc. So we are really hopeful in terms of the foam foodware. The ban right now bans it in 2030, which is 5 years away, but it bans everything in 2030. And this was something that the restaurants, the retailers wanted to see, and then we are working with um, particular factories that want to transition away from foam foodware and more. We wanted to ensure that there weren't workers that lose their job because of this transition, and it seems like we're in a good spot. We've taken off most of the opposition, but we'll still have some, and we're excited to try and move that forward this year. And then we also think we may be able to move an agreement on a plastic bag ban. And so this is a bill, we've been learning more and more that bag taxes are not working the way that we would like them to. And so, for example, the city of Chicago has nearly, even with, it just increased the tax, but the city of Chicago has nearly doubled how much revenue it's bringing in with plastic bags. So that means it's selling more and more, and it's not doing anything to reduce the amount of plastic bags that are that are being sold. And so what we really need is to ban them. This bill creates a ban on plastic bags and a 10-cent fee on paper bags for all large retailers across the state. It has a very strict definition for what is a reusable bag. So they can't just be giving out these thick plastic bags. They need to be giving out real reusable bags or sending things away in paper. And this bill also, it does preempt all communities from doing something else. So they'll have to do this. And this takes place in 2028. Um, and it would get rid of almost 90% of all plastic bags in Illinois and affect national chains in a way that we hope that they make these changes in other states, especially in the Midwest. And then we are working on a bill to skip single-use plastics, have them available by request only, especially for takeout and delivery. But we're still negotiating that one, so I don't have anything positive on that, but I think it's going well. And then organics ban is really important. So we're trying to keep organics out of landfills. So this is Senate Bill 1398. This bill would establish a hierarchy that it would prevent or reduce food waste, divert food for human consumption, divert for agricultural use, and then composting. And it would create a diversion ban that begins in 2028 and goes until 2033 for large generators of food scrap, so that um, landfills emit methane, which is a very dangerous climate change gas that we've already talked about. But landfills we are the eighth largest emitter of methane emissions from landfills in the country. So really important piece of legislation we'd like to see move forward. We're also continuing the work on the wetlands bill. We really need to get our Department of Natural Resources on this one, but this would require that isolated wetlands be protected by the state of Illinois. After the Sackett versus EPA suit, the Supreme Court weakened our wetlands protections. So isolated wetlands that are not continuously surface connected to a body of water would not be protected, and we've got to do something to protect these. So we're working on negotiating that legislation as well. This is a kind of a blank slide, but City of Chicago, we are working on a number of different things with the city. And one of the important things I want to tell you about is our upcoming City Hall Lobby Week. We're starting registration next week, but it's going to be the full week of April 14th. So this is different than lobby days because we are not going to have everybody come down to Springfield on buses or trains. They're going to meet with their aldermen in their own ward office. And so should be pretty convenient for everybody. But unfortunately, we can't just do it all on one day. We're going to have to do it throughout the week. So we're working on setting up meeting times with aldermen, and then we're getting people to sign up. And I know that the Clean and Affordable Building Ordinance will be on there, cumulative impact related to environmental justice communities. I believe there's also a bird-friendly design ordinance, and we're working on what the ask will be in plastic, as well as some budget asks related to things like lead service lines, the Department of Environment, and other items. And so look for that to come, but save a little time that week if you're in, and we will get you signed up for City Hall Lobby Week. But we also have several lobby days. We just had our soil health lobby day last week. I believe Claudia can put in the chat if you want to work on any of those styrofoam bags or skip the stuff. There's a plastic reduction lobby day on March 20th. That's going to be a really big deal. I'm so excited. Please come hang out in Springfield. We'll have a conservation lobby day in April, and we haven't picked our climate action lobby day yet because there's a lot of stuff happening. So we will see what occurs. But just wanted to thank you for having me and supporting the Illinois Environmental Council. I think I'll stop sharing a bit, although I can put some slides up, and I did see some questions already. So let me answer some questions, and then you can put other ones in the chat, or otherwise. So Claudia, it's okay if I head for some questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Great. Okay, so committee deadline, it means that the bill does need to, I got a question directly. What does committee deadline mean? Is it that it has to have a vote to move the bill out of committee or something else? And yes, by March 21st, there needs to be a vote by the committee to keep that bill moving. And so it could be, they have this thing that's called hold on second. So if you think you're going to have enough votes and you're going to be able to do it, then you can move the bill forward and then come back to committee later with an amendment. But you have to have had a vote of some kind by March 21st. So that's coming up. The Senate gives very liberal extensions, so they may not move those, but the House everything's got to at least have moved a little bit by the 21st. So there's a question, are you seeing or do you anticipate loss of federal funding for any proposed or current programs? So we're tracking what's going on right now, and I believe we're finally at a point where the illegally frozen money has been unfrozen and is being spent and discharged. We already have contracts for all of those things that have been signed. And so, the climate pollution reduction grants and other things do need to be sent. And then I am concerned definitely about US EPA and the firings that have been happening there. We've also seen a number of the Natural Resources Conservation Service workers in Illinois. Over 100 of them have been fired, a third of the staff at Midway, US Fish and Wildlife Service workers, National Park Service workers at Pullman, at Shawnee have been fired, which is just really scary. And we are definitely worried about how it impacts that federal funding, especially of IEPA in the future. A lot of IEPA programs are delegated to IEPA, so if they're taken away at the federal government, how we ensure that they stay in place and are funded is going to be a question. There's one last piece here. Real quickly, Krishnamurthy and Senator Durbin are asking for stories from people who are badly impacted by the reductions from the federal government. Does IEC have plans to write these legislators to tell these elected leaders about the harm will come from not enacting some of these laws? We are not only writing them, we are meeting with them in person. I just did a little roundtable with Rep. Krishnamurthy. We have one coming up with Congressman Caston, with Congressman Budzinski, and we are collecting stories from our members that we are sharing with legislators, with the media. We just had a number of stories that IEC was able to prompt on the Illinois Eats program, which is a program that funds farmers to get access food to food pantries, and that was cut. And so we're working on that. I definitely encourage you to share your stories personally with your Congress people if you have them, but definitely through Claudia or other members of the league, making sure that you've got what you need. So I had a question here, last one, but I'll take more. But this last one I see in the chat. I've heard that paper bags and reusable bags have a larger environmental footprint than plastic bags with production and transportation costs. Is there evidence that banning plastic bags is a net benefit? There is lots. And I think, one of the things that we have to start with, and I don't want to be in a situation where we're chopping down more trees, but there's so much recycling of paper that's going on right now. And one of the items is if you compare paper can get recycled into paper, which is what's supposed to happen. Plastic bags don't get recycled back into plastic bags. In fact, no plastic is actually ever meeting the technical definition of recycling because plastics cannot be heated to the point that they can be used for food when you're recycling them. And so plastics get turned into things like plastic wood or clothing or things that they can't become the thing that they were before, like an aluminum can or a paper bag, which can be endlessly recycled into, well, not endlessly. Paper does get shorter fibers. Eventually it becomes things like toilet paper and tissue paper because the fibers are too short for recycling. But there's a lot there. So I definitely think that I definitely think that there's a lot out there. I can maybe point to some resources, but I think we're just starting. Well, and with the premise, I don't know, going too much into this, plastic is destroying our curbside recycling system, just decimating it. I mean, we see that 9 or 10% rate in Chicago, but I think for all of us, there are times that we hold the plastic item in our hands and we're like, does this go into the recycling bin or does it not? And then we wish cycle and then we put it in there. The people who do, it's called material recovery facility, is where recycling goes after it gets picked up. And at the materials recovery facility, plastic bags are the number one thing that clogs up machines. And people all think because it's plastic and plastic is recyclable, they can put their plastic bags into the recycling thing. If you pick up one thing that you can do at home today, it's do not put your plastic bags, plastic film, plastic wrap in the curbside recycling bin ever. It's one of the worst things to put in there because it clogs up the machines and they have to stop them every 10 minutes to pull all the plastic bags out. And so that's a piece there. But there's definitely a lot, and I should probably compile some because I know when we go to committee, there's going to be some Republican that wants to bring up cutting down trees. And you're still cutting down trees because you're using paper bags, but there's a lot more recycling there. There's a lot fewer toxins. Paper bags are not getting into your brain. There's a spoon of plastic in your brain now, according to recent studies. So lots of things where we just need to be ending this practice and guiding people towards reusables. Yeah, I'll put our YouTube channel in the chat at the end. Bill Cool asked what is happening with the Lake Michigan coal ash bill. The Lake Michigan coal ash bill passed committee last week and is headed to the House floor. I think we're ready to go. We just have to do some vote checking on that, but I think we could call it. The environmental justice bills are more important than ever, and I am working on getting something negotiated with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency to get where we need to go. And the Muhammad Aquifer bill, we're working on every day. Contact your lawmakers, etc. Margie asked about polyester clothing. You know, I think we'll get there, but our focus right now has been on kind of the worst of the worst in terms of styrene and the plastic bags. Those are just having the biggest impacts. They're sort of the easiest to ban. And I think pushing manufacturers towards the use of more sustainable products is something long-term that we want to head towards. You said you're meeting with Democratic U.S. congressional reps and senators. We are working on LaHood and Bost, not necessarily Rep Miller, but we are Rep LaHood is really important, and he's definitely on the edge about some of these things. And so if you know anybody in Rep LaHood's district, which is near Peoria, goes down to Springfield, be sure to contact him because he is really a reasonable guy and he's really thinking about this stuff. So I see that Claudia put the action committee page. I also, we have action alerts. They're not all updated yet. It's the beginning of session. We'll be doing action alerts on all of these things. So I hope you will write your lawmakers. And just we also will have witness slips we send around, but I just definitely want to encourage all of you, if we send a witness slip around, make sure you're also contacting your lawmaker, because witness slips do not go to your lawmaker. It's just something that's filed with the committee to show opposition or support. Your lawmaker will never see it unless they are looking for it. So that's my one piece of how to effectively take action. So, anybody else have questions that they want to ask? I just kind of burned through those, and I'm going to take a sip of my drink. So,
if I may, Jen, I'm just going to jump in, Margie, in answer to or a comment on your polyester clothing. Number one thing we can all do is don't buy it. That's just a fact. Number two, there are bills that are being advanced on washing machine filters that will help filter out the microfiber crap that comes off of the polyester and lycra and all the things you see that you cannot identify in your materials tag on your clothing. Jen, do you have anything to add to that, or is that good enough? Yeah.
yep, that's good.
I also want to share with you all regarding action alerts. As Jen said, they are updating because, you know, everything is just now getting solidified. As soon as those action alerts are available, they will be blasted out in the Chicago update, the Tuesday update. They will be updated on our Environmental Action Committee webpage, which I dropped the link in the chat. Hopefully you all are following our Waste Not Want Not blog and using our tips and tricks for sustainable living in your own lives, because we keep it updated as we find new things to do. Yeah, we will update those, have them there up always, so you can share them with your friends, point your friends to those pages. Those of you who are not Chicago League people, use that page in your own leagues for resources. And of course, you're completely welcome to go to IEC's website, where they have under Take Action or something like that, all of these action alerts. You don't have to wait for the league to tell you to do it. You can just follow it there. And then just quickly to kind of build this all out. Jen mentioned, first of all, Jen is a league member, yay. And then reciprocally, the league, both Chicago and Illinois, are members of IEC, which gives us access to everything Jen has been working on and talking about. So these YouTube channels, information as to what's going on at the federal level, legislative information, all the lobbying activity that Jen does. We get the benefit of that by being members of this. Secondarily, she mentioned coalition work. And ICJC, who is doing most of the the buildings, transportation grid. They're doing all of it. We follow very closely at the EAC and even more closely at the State League. Bill Kale is on the call, and he is super active on all of those bills. So those of you who listen to me yammer on about plastics, Bill is the guy for information on plastics for the league. He follows this very closely and keeps me updated so I can at least pass on when we need to take action to you all. Secondarily, those of you who are involved in the EAC know that we also, as a Chicago and State League, are a part of the Coalition for Plastic Reduction. And that group's working super hard to get rid of single-use plastic in the state and at the city level. So we actively use as best as we can our access to IEC and then the coalitions that are built off of that to move things forward rather than just being a single voice in the void. We are a powerful voice, teaming up with many top groups, the Sierra Club, Environment Illinois, IEC, it goes on and on and on. So that's just a little bit more information on that. Are there any more questions in the chat? I'm having problems seeing anything that you were talking about for whatever reason, Jen. I didn't see any of those questions. So is there anything there that you see?
No, there's nothing added.
Okay. I also popped into the chat a short video for those of you who are asking questions about plastic. It's called The Story of Stuff, and it's just an animated short. You can dive into the documentary too if you want. But it gives you a quick idea of the recycling problems and then the fact that it's just impossible to recycle or dispose of the plastic we have, let alone the plastic we're creating. So it's just a great kind of a introduction. If you want to go further, I can get you more information. So that's in the chat too. Regarding lobby days, the only marketing I have for lobby days right now is a PDF, or sorry, is a JPEG. I cannot put that in the chat, but lobby days are advertised every week on Tuesdays in our update. And we will send out information along with the video if you want to sign up for lobby day. I believe too, if you go to IEC's website, you can sign up for lobby day there too. So there's lots of ways. And those of you that don't have my email, I'll pop it in the chat and you can ask me specifically and I'll send you the information. All right, does anyone have a question? You can just come off mute and ask it.
Oh, I see Abigail's raising her hand.
Go, Abigail.
Oh, is she? Maybe she's wait. I'll hit S to unmute to see if that helps.
Last year at a environmental lobby day, it was also free cheesecake from the state treasurer Mendoza. I've always thought I was going to try to write a letter about that. Jen, are you aware of that? And has anybody asked her, please don't use plastic at your events?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we could do, that she does that because of Judy Bartopinka. We're working on getting the Secretary of State to move the state cafeteria off of styrofoam. So there's definitely a lot of work to do, a lot of education to do. Yeah, so
It just sometimes boggles your mind that folks aren't on board yet.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, I totally agree, but I also have a lot of compassion for people in general. And I
Sure.
think, the reason that there aren't, people make individual choices. They got their own individual choices to make all the time. And the reason that the choices aren't better is because of policy and government. So to me, we need to make sure that the option that is offered and available default is the environmental option. And the one that is harder to do is the one that's bad for the environment or impossible to do because we banned it. And so, she definitely should make her own and take those individual actions. But like I said, I have a lot of compassion for people who have a lot of decisions to make in their daily lives and choose things because they're convenient. And that's why that focus really needs to be on how we ensure that people don't have to make decisions and that the only choice available to them is the right one. So I see Bill raising his hand. Hi, Bill.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. I want to especially thank Claudia for pulling all this stuff together. This is awesome that you wrangled Jen in here for like 64 minutes. I don't know if everybody appreciates how difficult a feat that in itself was. So thank you, Jen, for showing up this morning, and a lot of wonderful information for all of us. I do have a question, though. I know a lot of church folks are very involved in recycling styrofoam when and wherever they can. We have a box at our own church. It's called Styrofoam Heaven. Please bring it here. Are you suggesting, or actually you explicitly said, styrofoam recycling does not work? Should we actually stop even trying to do that, or just try to make it better while we can until we can pass decent laws?
No, I think that you should still be trying to recycle styrofoam, but especially even with styrofoam recycling, they don't like, even though the places will take your, nasty clamshell that you had your Indian food in, they don't really want that. They want clean styrofoam. And even with our bill, we're only banning foam foodware. We're still going to need a place for the styrofoam that comes in all sorts of packaging that's out there. And that is clean and it's really what they do want. Um, and I think there's a piece, we shouldn't stop. We should always be still trying to do the right thing and try to divert things from landfills. Um, and if it exists, trying to do that thing, I think is better, even if it is toxic, because it exists and we're trying to do it. But even with styrofoam recycling, it's never going to be curbside because like literally the updates to material recovery facility to take styrofoam curbside would cost tens of millions of dollars to update equipment. The material recovery facilities, they don't want it in your curbside. And so it's not something where we're going to go from churches to suddenly being able to put it in your bin outside. So you keep doing it, but also let's ban it so that we don't have as much of it. And even after we enact this ban, there's still going to be stuff that we need to recycle through foam. And Illinois produces a quarter of all styrofoam in the nation. And so this is, beyond foam foodware, there's a lot that we're producing here that we're doing a lot of styrene, especially in the Joliet area. So the more the better, but keep doing what you're doing, etc. So, Claudia, you wanna?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, even if we get this ban, which we're all like holding our breath and crossing our fingers and saying our prayers, and I mean, it's been a long haul, guys, so anything you can do with these action alerts, we would really appreciate it. Even if we get this done, we're talking 2030, that's 5 years from now. So there's so much that can be done in the meantime in terms of education to get our schools to turn off the tap, to get our local governments to turn off the tap, because nothing is stopping people from stopping to use and buy it. It just cannot be mandated by law, right, Jen? I guess, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we can get the city to stop buying it in their facilities, even though the law doesn't go into effect till 2030. So there's lots of things we can do. We can start at your local level, start with your friends, start with your churches, start with your garden groups, ladies groups, all that stuff. And we'll just keep going till we get rid of the stuff.
Mhm.
All right. Questions? Hands? All right. I think we are good to go with questions for Jen. I'll do some quick. Oh, Margie, go ahead.
Oh, you're on mute if you're speaking, Margie.
I certainly am speaking. Sorry. I was wondering if you could put in the chat or send us afterwards a link to a specific place in your website that gives a detailed explanation of the actual science behind carbon impact. Because sometimes people ask me questions and I'm not a scientist and I don't want to just say call Claudia. I
Yeah.
did say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can't find that on my website because we're more focused on the policies, but we have members that definitely have that. So I'll see what I can find. Actually, quick science videos and stuff might be something that I can get my staff to do some resources on, not making, but like linking to them in our member affiliates. The Union of Concerned Scientists has some good stuff, but we're kind of more on the policy end in terms of our niche. Can't do all the things, but
Yeah,
Claudia, did you have some suggestions?
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
was just, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Claudia. I was just saying at my old league a number of years ago, they had a scientist from Argonne National Laboratory that presented such a fabulous overview and told us so many facts that everybody was like on board right away, even though people who were more reluctant. So I just would like access to that type of simplistic, fact-based explanation. So I'd really appreciate if you could send us a link or tell us, have Claudia let us know afterwards where we can go easily, because some of the stuff is really complicated and some of it is necessary to know.
Yeah. I was gonna pop in and say, Bill, do you know of any places we could link in? And you and I can do it offline if you
Yeah.
want.
We're gonna have to do this offline. I'm trying to filter down about 150 different things. It's too much at once. We'll work on it.
Okay, sounds good. And Margie, I will, if you want, send you the fact sheets for the bills that Jen was talking about, the clean and affordable bills. Because those fact sheets just contain great talking points. They don't necessarily drill into the science, but they do have good talking points, so I can send those to you.
Okay, that would be great. But when people ask me questions, when I tell them something, I like to be able to answer, or I feel like I'm not going to convince them.
Totally agree, and I can't answer any of the questions on those. I refer everybody to Master Google because I don't know. Cool.
Thank you.
For sure. Keep asking question, guys. You make us better. Those of us that are trying to be what are called climate specialists for the Illinois League. As you ask us questions, we figure out that we have gaps in the information we're giving you or whatever. So push us. Anything else here? All right. Jane, do you have anything in wrap up?
No, I'm not seeing anything in chat on my end, but I would like to say, because it is International Women's Day, the push for gender equality, not just here in this country, but globally, is very tied to environmental justice and environmental action. And all of our work with defending democracy and voting rights and all of this, like, if we don't have a planet, there's no democracy to defend. And so, that's why I'm so thrilled with how the league really sort of takes a stand on the environment stuff just as much, and that we have such incredible leaders here in our Chicago League who make sure, we're involved in this really important work. And I know I certainly learned a lot. So thank you so much, Jen. And we're thrilled to have you as a league member now as well. And thank you, Claudia, for organizing this.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And again, yes, thank you, Jen, for your very valuable time in helping us help you